The following is a production of Frank DeFreitas and the Internet Webzine of Holography.
Hello everyone, this is Frank DeFreitas and welcome to another week of HoloTalk for the week of November 7th, 1999, and welcome to November. Our guest this week is Dave Hodges, and Dave is an amateur and hobbyist holographer, and he's going to come on the show and talk to us a little bit about his setup and how he got started with holography, his interests, and where he's looking to take holography in the future. And this is the first show of many, I hope, for the rest of the season where we can bring amateur and hobbyist holographers onto the show to talk about the work that they're doing right in their own homes, their garages, their basements, or wherever they happen to have their own studio lab. And there's a lot of very interesting things happening with amateur and hobbyist holography right now, and it would be a perfect opportunity to hear what others are doing across the country and around the world right here on HoloTalk, and Dave will be the first person to start out this series. Also coming up, I have a special show that I'm putting together now that we're just about a year into doing laser pointer and diode holography. I thought I would look back over the year and sort of put everything together into one concise program to show exactly what we can do with the laser pointers, what we can do with the diodes, and we're going to take a very interesting look at the reemergence of single beam reflection holography, and I think you're going to find this a very interesting show. So there's a number of different things that have happened over the year that have been very exciting, and I'd like to put them together into one show and show you just how far holography has come with this. And like they say, what goes around comes around. We're going to take another look at single beam holography, which sort of was put on the shelf for many, many years, but it turns out that it may see a very interesting reemergence for a number of different reasons that I will cover in the upcoming show. And I'll try and get that show up next week, but if not next week, we'll get it up the week after. So let's move on to the interview with Dave Hodges. I'm not going to come back on after the interview's over. So I will thank you now for tuning in and hope you tune in each and every week here at HoloTalk when we bring you news and information about the fields that we know and love, lasers and holography. This is Frank DeFreitas. See you next week.
Hello?
Hello, Dave. It's Frank DeFreitas.
Hey, Frank. How you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. I'm talking with Dave Hodges. And what part of the country are you in, Dave?
Oh, I'm just outside of St. Louis, Missouri, a town called St. Charles.
Okay, and I guess you would consider yourself an amateur hobbyist holographer, right?
Yeah.
When did you get started, and how did you get started with holography?
Well, let's see. It was back, I guess, 96. My wife worked at a retail store, and they had an old cash register they were throwing away, and I saw that it had a Spectrophysics 1 milliwatt laser in it, and I had seen a thing on the Discovery Channel, and I thought, well, geez, I can try this, and I built myself a sand table and read about 1,000 pages of documentation and threw the thing together and started shooting a hologram, right?
Did you get a hologram from using that Spectrophysics laser that was in the cash register?
Yeah, I sure did.
Yeah.
I sure did. As a matter of fact, my very first attempt, I guess I studied it just good enough to make a good guess, and the very first 2.5 by 2.5 inch plate was I got holographed a little airplane.
Mm-hmm.
Stealing the kids' toys, you know.
Where do you have your lab set up at?
In the basement.
In the basement, yeah. And what type of table are you using?
Well, right now I was using a 3 by 6 sand table.
Mm-hmm.
And then I ended up, I doubled the beam back and forth, and I was able to shoot a hologram for Halloween.
Mm-hmm.
And it was an 8 by 10, but it was really tough to get that set up. So a friend of mine suggested, why don't you put a table on top of that sand table? So I built a 5 by 10 table.
Mm-hmm.
And set it right with real short legs and set it right in the sand.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah. It's I made a 90 degree grid out of 2 by 6s,
mm-hmm.
and then set particle board on top of that, and then pegboard on top of that, and set the pegboard so that it straddled the 2 by 6s
mm-hmm.
on 3 inch centers. So basically, I have what do they call it, a breadboard table?
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
on 3-inch centers, so it's pretty stable.
Now, do you use that pegboard when you set up your optical components, or are there special things that you put into those holes now?
I put 800 blind nuts on the bottom of this table.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, but what a job. My arm got tired. But yeah, now I've got those 800 nuts on 3-inch centers across the whole 5x10 table, and I can just take a 1/4-20 bolt in a flat piece of wood and just clamp my optical components down.
Wow. I'd love to see a picture of that table. You don't have any pictures, do you?
Yeah, I sure do. I can send you one.
Do you have a scanner or anything?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, could you scan one of those pictures and send it to me? I'll put it up on the website to go with the interview. That would be really interesting to see that table.
Well, as a matter of fact, I've got a couple pictures where I had to build a jig so I could prop it up on its side when I was putting all those blind nuts in, because somebody had to be on the back, and I epoxied each one of those and drew them down with a bolt and a washer.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I've got some of those pictures. I'll send them to you, Frank.
Okay, that would be good. I'll put those up, and people can click on the link and have the pictures come up and see this table, because I'm very interested. It's a very interesting design.
Well, that's a friend of mine that was a printer. The guy that told me about he goes, you use, we've talked about this before, the guy that said use Kodak film, use Kodak developer, use Fuji film, use Fuji developer. He goes, for God's sakes, you use Russian film, use Russian developer. You know?
You've worked with some of the newer materials. How do you find them to work with compared to when you were working with the AGFA materials?
Oh, geez, Frank, I shot piece after piece after piece with no hologram at all. And it was that friend of mine I was just telling you about, he told me, try that Russian developer. And I called Lithuania and asked them, and they told me, they said they were using SM6 for that PFG01.
Okay.
And I started getting holograms right after I started using that SM6.
Mm-hmm.
Now, whether it was just a fluke or whether the developer itself, I found that it worked nice. I buy the chemicals and mix them myself.
Yeah. Now, what developer were you using that didn't work with the Russian?
Well, I tried some D19, and I got a ghost of an image, you might say, but it just wasn't what I thought was acceptable.
Yeah. I just had Ronnie Anderson from Norway send me the chemicals for the SM6 to try it out, so I'm going to be trying that out too. You
got them from where? Norway?
Yeah. Yeah. I didn't want to buy like a pound of it at a time. I just wanted to try it out and compare it to the pyro process. So
have you tried Photographer's Formulary?
Actually, I didn't want to buy it in bulk yet. I just wanted to. He just sent me enough to make a liter.
Oh, I see.
You know, just enough to make a liter.
So you just got a drop of it.
Yeah, just a little bit.
Yeah, because I've bought it for enough for maybe 5 liters or something like that. They'll sell it in less than a pound.
Yeah. I was just talking to Bill from Photographer's Formulary today, and they're thinking about making a kit with the SM6 developer. It's like you can order it just like the JD2 or the JD3 kit. So they're thinking about putting that together. I
didn't realize that. I've been buying the chemicals, just the raw chemicals.
Yeah, I think that's how everyone's been doing it. But they're looking to put a package together similar to the JD series of developers. Yeah,
one thing I haven't tried, and I've got the chemicals to do it. I just haven't sat down and mixed them up. Is that PVU amidol bleach? I haven't tried that. Have you talked to anybody that's done that, Frank?
No. But what bleach are you using with the SM6?
The sulfuric acid and potassium dichromate.
Okay, yeah.
And that seems to work. I'm getting good results with it.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, yesterday I sent a hologram to you in the mail of a rose on this. It's a ceramic rose. Mm-hmm. And it's in the mail. It went out yesterday.
Okay.
So you should be getting it there.
Now, what are you thinking about doing with your business? You've left a business that you already had to get started with holography. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. I don't know if it was the wisest maneuver on my part, but you know how that goes. Mm-hmm. But well, I don't know. I have several ideas. I think that this thing's going to explode. We've talked about this before, Frank. Mm-hmm. I think holography is where the airplane was in 1910. It's an idea that's been around for a while, but I just don't think it's been exploited.
What do you think are some of the things that's going to make that happen now compared to what wasn't happening before?
Well, I think the price of lasers are coming down.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, you've got that diode that you've been working on.
Yeah.
I'd like to get my hands on one of those.
Yeah.
And the price with this Russian film coming in on the market, if we can start getting consistently good images with this film, it seems to be inexpensive enough to where the cost justify the means, so to speak.
So you're getting very good results with the Slavich film using the SM6 developer and the potassium dichromate bleach.
Yeah,
okay.
They're acceptable. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, yeah, I find them to be acceptable. As a matter of fact, that rose, I think you'll be kind of surprised with it. It's got a couple of defects, but I think that's from. We talked about that also before. I think it's. I got a real nice image. And then I tried to rush through 5 of them just to see how fast I could do them.
Mm-hmm.
I think I was doing them so fast that the glass plate still had heat from my fingers on it.
Yes. Yeah.
And, well, you can take a look at that and tell me what you think.
Every hologram has the secret to what's wrong with it if there is something wrong. It's there. It talks to you. If you know how to listen to it, it'll tell you exactly what happened.
I found that these patterns, have you ever seen... Oh, sometimes you see military footage where people walk across the floor, and then you'll see they'll use an infrared camera, and you can see the heat.
Yes.
Okay, you know how that has kind of a scintillation type or a moire pattern.
Yes.
Well, each hologram had a pattern very similar to that. That's what led me to believe that maybe it was I wasn't letting the settle time.
Could be polarization.
Well, that's possible.
Yeah, we'll take a look at that, and we'll see. If you've got a polarized laser, we could just rotate that laser head a little bit, and that'll disappear completely. It's amazing.
Wow.
Yeah.
I was unaware of that.
Yeah, let me take a look at that when it comes through here.
That's another thing I'd like to get in the future here is a polarized laser. I'd like to try that one that you're working on there, Frank.
Well, we're ready to go with those, and the only thing that we're waiting to hear, we have the Small Business Development Center of Lehigh University that's helping us get up and running because, I guess Sam will agree to this, that neither one of us are real bright when it comes to business and liability and things. So we just want to make sure that we're protected and doing everything legally, and we just want to make sure that if anybody gets one of these systems and they take the diode laser and decide to eat it for breakfast, that they can't sue us.
Yeah.
You know, that type of thing?
Yeah, exactly.
Because there's a lot of crazy things out there. People drink paint because now they have the warnings on the paint can, do not drink paint.
Oh, my God.
Someone just sued a Halloween costume manufacturer because their kid jumped out of the tree with a Superman uniform on and he's paralyzed. And, you got to watch out for everything like that. So
yeah, as a matter of fact, I was on the phone with the Food and Drug Administration for what is it, the Center for Devices and Radiological Health.
Yeah.
Because I'd like to make some display hologram models and put them in like nightclubs, things like that. But I'm afraid of somebody getting up there with 2 inches from the beam and staring into it, and then all of a sudden you're in trouble, you know?
Yeah. So what do you want to do with your business?
Well,
you have everything there right now where you could start running workshops and having people come in and learn how to do holograms. That can be a little lucrative if you've got an area that hasn't been serviced before by anyone else doing that.
Well, that's a good idea, Frank.
Yeah, you already know how to do it. It's time to take a few. Let me give you a couple tips if you don't mind me doing so.
No, I don't, Frank.
You've got holograms that you've shot. What I would suggest that you do is take those holograms, put them into nice little frames. Maybe contact your local library or one of your small private galleries in the area and tell them that you'd like to put some of your holograms on display. People will come and they'll see the holograms, and right next to the holograms you can have little printed sheets, the fact that you run maybe weekend workshops or something like that, and people will pick those sheets up and they'll be so fascinated by the holograms that they'll want to come in and make one of their own.
Well, that's a good idea, Frank.
And get you up and running.
Well, that's a good idea. Can we talk about this later sometime?
Sure.
That'd be great. I'd be interested in any information you could give me.
Yeah. If you're already successful making holograms, then you're to the point where you can show someone else to be just as successful as you are.
Well, that'd be great.
Yeah.
That'd be great. Have you done much work with film at all, Frank?
I have some Agfa film, but I've always tried to stay away from it, and the most I ever really use it for is workshops and tests. You know, I only charge $100 for someone to come in to do a workshop, which runs about 2.5 hours or so.
Right.
And, you know, to take the price of a plate out of that $100 on top of that takes a big chunk. So I still use film for the workshops.
Oh, I see. Yeah, because I was pricing some plates, and I don't remember if they were those BB plates or if they were the PFG01 plates. They were like, for an 8x10, they were almost $50, right?
Yeah.
You know, so I figured, well, film's cheap. If I'm going to do it like a master, well, I'll grab I grab a piece of glass, because I tried to do a master with a piece of film, and it was the same little airplane that I had my first successful hologram with, as a matter of fact. And I put it 10 inches back, and I flipped the plate around, and sure enough, it just hung out there real pretty, 10 inches in front of the plate.
Oh, yeah.
So I dropped another plate and bisected that plane and put another piece of film there, and this was a single beam setup, and I've got a white light transmission hologram out of it. That's not the prettiest one in the world.
No kidding.
No,
And this was with a single beam.
Yeah, I've got the beam spread to 18 inches.
Yeah.
You know, so I was able to cover, and I hit it at an angle of, I think I measured the angle to be 25 degrees to the plane of the plate.
Okay.
And I was able to get both my plate holders set up in there.
Single beam work is nice right now because of the high diffraction efficiency of the new plates, and I'm going to do a special show on doing single beam work, because you can even do image plane holograms with single beam.
Well, that's exactly what I did. I've got a book, Homemade Holograms, and they said this is a cheap and dirty way to do white light transmission hologram. And it's due to the fact that I used film, made my transmission hologram, the white light transmission hologram, a bit grainy. And so, and it was the first one I attempted, and maybe it's not because if I did split beam setup, I could use a collimated reference beam. I think they had to clean it up a lot, but I haven't tried it. There's so many experiments out there, Frank. That nobody, I don't think, could sit down and try all the experiments that go through your mind at one. You know.
Yeah, at one point, with the Agfa materials were really nice, but they certainly didn't have the efficiency that the new materials have. So the split beam setup was really nice because you could control the brightness more and get a brighter hologram as a result of doing split beam holography. But with the new materials, and the diffraction efficiencies are so high to begin with, there's no need to even set up split beam work anymore. Single beam can give you just your regular single beam reflection hologram. You can get your image plane white light transmission like you just did, or an image plane white light reflection hologram. Same results, just working with a single beam.
Frank, one thing I've noticed though is this: when you do split beam work, you can move your subject matter further from the plate as long as you're keeping your beam distances close to being equal. You'll have something that appears to be much deeper. Because to spread the beam out that far, you lose a lot of light. You know, I don't know. That's just something that's just my opinion.
Yeah. Well, believe it or not, with the diode lasers, you don't even have to worry about beam paths anymore because the coherence length is so long on them. I know with this one that we have here, I managed to get out to 14 feet on the coherence length before I stopped. So that's a minimum of coherence length on that diode is 14 feet.
Did you set up a set of rails and back that off a little at a time?
That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to put a mirror on the spatial filter on the Z-axis. And I'm going to use the micrometer head to actually move that mirror to see if those fringes go in and out. Some people say it will. I say it will not.
I don't know. That's an interesting thing about coherence length. I don't know if it's a repetition where you're in coherence length and out of it, in it, and out of it, in it, and out of it. In other words, does it repeat itself? Yeah. See, John Iovine, I think that's how he pronounces his last name, who wrote Homemade Holography. He just did a 2-part series in Popular Electronics. And he says toward the end of the article, I believe it's the second one, which is the November issue, he thinks that the laser goes in and out of coherence every millimeter. But a millimeter is not
not that small. That's big. A millimeter is big. That would show up on an object.
That would be detectable by the human eye.
Yeah, you'd see that in the final hologram if that was going in and out every millimeter or so.
Now, if it was going in and out every few microns,
yeah,
that might not. That wouldn't be detectable by the human eye.
And even if it did, if it doesn't show up in the final hologram, what's the deal?
It wouldn't matter.
It wouldn't matter.
What are you doing this for? For the end result.
Yes. Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
And that's another thing that I found with a collimation. A cheap way to collimate a beam is grab it costs you all of maybe $5. Grab a magnifying glass from a drafting supply house. Mm-hmm. One of those big ones.
Yeah.
Okay. We're working with one color of light, Frank.
Yeah.
You don't have that chromatic, chromatic abrasion?
Yes.
That occurs there?
Mm-hmm.
So red light's going to focus where red light would focus anyway.
Yes.
So I found it to work fine.
No kidding.
Yeah.
And it collimates the beam.
Yeah. Why not? Just drop your microscope objective or whatever you're using to spread the beam, your little positive lens, put it at the focal length of the magnifying glass, and you've got a collimated beam.
Wow. That's a very good tip. I hope people are listening this far into the show to pick that up.
And it's the thing. There's a lot of ways to save a buck there. I mean, to check my polarization, I bought a $7 pair of Polaroid sunglasses at Walgreens.
Yeah.
I've got a little pin light laser there, and it's polarized. And as a matter of fact, I tied that down and shot a postage stamp size hologram with that, and didn't even use a lens. Just let the lens and the laser spread out over the length of my table, and I've got a little postage stamp size hologram from that little pin light laser. I was amazed.
Wow. Yeah, I know there are a few people that, and I've done that myself here. I'm set up for a 30 by 40 centimeter hologram, and I'm not using any of the collimating optics in the diode. I just took that lens completely out.
Uh-huh.
And that light is just as beautiful as any spatially filtered light coming out of your spatial filter that you'll ever get.
How hard is it to do without destroying it?
Well, that's the point. You have to find out with that particular diode that you're using where that photodiode is located, because a lot of times that photodiode relies on light reflected back from that collimating lens in order to control the current. And if you remove that lens, you do not have that reflected light coming off of that lens going back to the photodiode anymore. The Power Technology 35 milliwatt that I have even states in bold capital letters, do not even focus the collimating lens when the laser's running at full power, because that can blow it out. But fortunately, the diode that we're using in the system that we have, the photodiode must be situated so that it doesn't rely on the reflected light coming from the collimating lens, so that when it's removed, it's still giving you the same output. But it's a beautiful spread, and it's almost like it's being passed through a spatial filter. It's gorgeous.
Have you ever tried making your own spatial filters, Frank?
No, have you?
Oh, yeah. I mean, an old lathe that I had sitting around, I grabbed the cross slide off of it. You know what the cross slide on a lathe is?
No.
It's an X and Y type axis.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's it. So you can your lathe, like for turning bats and making machine screws, things of this nature.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, I took it off. It was a small lathe, so I took this cross slide off the lathe, built myself a little tangent arm that would pivot up and down, and affixed it to there, so that gave me my Z-axis. Mm-hmm. It was kind of an arc. It wasn't an actual Z-axis, but it worked. And then I took and sharpened a needle under a microscope, punched a hole through a stack of tinfoil.
Yeah, aluminum foil.
Yeah. Well, tinfoil, aluminum foil. Yeah, sure. And then went through them and found the one that would let light through the least amount, and then I set that in a beam, the laser beam, just an unspread laser beam, mm-hmm. and used that airy disk formula.
Yeah. And
measured the size of the hole, and I was able to get down to like one of my smallest ones was 25 microns.
Wow.
So, and it works fine. It takes me all but I can tear everything apart, set a lens in there, set my spatial filter up, and it takes me maybe 5 minutes to adjust the tops.
Yeah. Well, what I'm hoping to do is to get it to the point where we're making beautiful image plane holograms using single beam methods that are bright and not even requiring any lens or spatial filter at all.
That'd be great, Frank.
Yeah, just the diode itself, because basically according to the spread of the diode, you just place your materials wherever it happens to be the right amount of spread for whatever size materials you're working with. There's some pretty exciting stuff still coming up yet. This isn't all over yet.
I think I did fall off my chair when I found out there was a formula for manufacturing film, Frank. I'm looking into that right now. As a matter of fact, Photographer's Formula has most of the chemicals for that.
Oh, really? Okay, I'll have to point that out.
There's a Fisher Scientific company out there.
Okay.
That I found the remainder of the chemicals. It's going to cost me probably a couple $100 to get the chemicals, which is, if you're just scraping by on a shoestring, a couple $100 is, like a pair of shoes for the kids.
Yes, exactly.
Or whatever, But, yeah, I thought it'd be easier to get gold out of Fort Knox than it would to come across a formula like that.
Yeah.
I thought that would be very tightly guarded.
Yeah, that's Jeff Blythe's work over in, I think, the University of Cambridge in England.
Yeah, I, as a matter of fact, the very night that I heard that, I pulled that information off the net.
Yeah.
And started looking into it. It looks like it's pretty straightforward.
Yeah, yeah.
It doesn't look like it was all that complicated. I called my niece by marriage, and she's going through a chemistry class, and I said, it jogged my memory, this weight by volume. I said, that's just so many grams per 100 grams of fluid. And because, did you read that article there where it gives you percent weight by volume? And it gives you weight by volume, and I was a little confused. And she said that's just like silver nitrate, 6% weight by volume in deionized water. Well, that's 6 grams per 100 grams of water.
Oh, okay. Okay, but you're actually measuring the weight of the water instead of the volume, right?
1 cubic centimeter of water weighs a gram. That's the way they set the metric system up.
Oh, okay.
So it's then so you can do a weight by volume.
Okay. Okay.
And so that ought to dial you in close enough, and it looks just like a series of baths there that you go through, and I'm going to give that a try.
What was the most expensive chemical that you found in the process?
Oh, the silver nitrate.
Is that what it was? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's got silver in it, so it's about $200 a pound if you're going to buy it by the pound, but you can get it. Let me see.
I imagine if you bought a pound of that stuff, you'd be able to make plates for the rest of your life, I would imagine.
Yeah, you surely would. I've got my Photographer's Formula thing sitting right here. Let's see, silver nitrate, 100 grams for $68.
Mm-hmm.
100 grams would last you a long time.
Yeah.
Because they're talking about pipetting 2 milliliters.
Yeah.
Onto a 4x5 plate.
Mm-hmm.
Well, seemed like in the percentage is only 6%. So, geez.
Yeah. Yeah.
It seemed like it'd almost last forever.
Yeah. You got plates for the rest of your life.
Yeah, you would. It would seem that way.
And you know what's neat? If you screw one up, you just bathe it, take the emulsion off, put the plate in Clorox, it takes the emulsion off, and start over again with a new glass substrate. Yeah,
and it just so happens that I have a friend that's a glazier, too. So, I mean, I can probably get spent glass for a good price.
Yeah.
That's another thing. It's the price of this is coming down with this breakthrough in laser technology with the diode lasers. It just seems to be something that I think it's going to go, Frank. I think it's going to go big.
I think so, too. We're looking for some really big things happening.
How soon do you think you're going to be able to release those diode modules, Frank?
Well, what Sam and I want to do is send an email out to everyone who's on that list and tell them they can have one if they sign a release saying that if they happen to eat one for breakfast that they can't sue us.
Well, Frank, I'm not going to eat one for breakfast.
Yeah, you never know what's going to happen. There's always something crazy out there that happens.
Oh, I'd like to, you were talking about being 14 feet out of coherence length.
Yeah.
I'd like to try setting one of those up and doing a split beam setup
Mm-hmm.
and let it be 14 feet out of length.
Yeah.
And see what you get.
Sure.
I mean, if that's the case, it's almost unlimited.
Yes.
As long as you have vibration isolation.
Mm-hmm. And what's nice is you don't have to have the laser as part of the isolation. You just need to have whatever happens to be in the setup and your holographic plate isolated.
Yeah, we were talking about that before, too. That was my understanding. I hear a lot of people that have their laser mounted in another room.
Yeah.
And as long as all the optical components on the table remain in relative position to each other, you don't have any problem.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I'll tell you what, though, Frank, that table that I built, I'm really happy with it.
Mm-hmm.
It does have some drawbacks to sand because I have to build some of my own gimbals to gimbal the.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
To gimbal the optics, where in sand you could just shove it over and get the beam to pretty much go where you wanted it.
Yeah, you won't even need optics when I'm finished.
Well, there you go.
That'll be a thing of the past.
There you go. That's a good idea. That's a good idea.
Yep.
But yeah, I'm looking very forward to getting my hands on one of those that you're making there, Frank.
Yeah.
So let me know. Put me at the top of the list or somewhere up there near the top of the list.
All right. Anything else you want to let anyone know about before we head out?
Oh, not that I can think of. Thank God for patient wives.
Yeah.
And all the kids out there listening, don't give up your dreams. You know.
That's good to say.
But that's about all I can think of. I guess we can talk later, huh, Frank?
Yeah, I'm going to say goodbye to you now, but if you'll hold on the line, I'll pick it up after we disconnect from the show.
Okay.
All right, so just go ahead.
Thanks for the opportunity, Frank.
Sure. And hold on the line.
Okay.
Okay. See you, folks.